Hi there, everybody. Today we're on our fourth episode of the Spring Boot series. I introduced you to the project in a very basic way the last time, and now in this episode we're actually going to add some structure into the project. What do I mean by structure? It's basically what I spoke about in our first episode, where we had our service, our controller, what else? Some sort of model or entity that we're working with, a repository that is connected to the database with which we can actually communicate. So today we are going to do a few things. First of all, we're going to create the folders. So let's just go ahead and do it. So we're going to have a package called controller. Then we'll have a package called service. Remember, just like in the first episode. Then we have an entity. And the last but not the least, repository. It's kind of hard for me to type and talk for some reason. First of all, so we have all the different folders. To basically start doing what we want to do, to add more functionality to our app, we need to add more dependencies. Right now we have some default dependencies provided by Spring. So right now I'm going to just copy paste a bunch of those dependencies. You'll have them in the video below. You can copy paste them. Alrighty. So first of all, we have Lombok. Lombok is great because it allows us to create a project with the least amount of boilerplate. Basically, when you're creating the average Java class, there is a lot of boilerplate involved with getters, setters, constructors. So Lombok is great for that. All you have to do, you'll see how when we'll get to the entities, but all you have to do is just to add a data annotation, or with other configurations, that's pretty much it. You got a ready to go entity. There is a downside to Lombok because it's not giving you flexibility to generate the constructor that you may want. Maybe you want some specific logic in your entity, which is fine. It's fine because you can always write your own class or to configure Lombok in a particular way, but we'll get into that. But anyways, Lombok is just a great tool. Therefore, we added this annotation here. Then we have MySQL connector G, MySQL JDBC. Okay, those will allow us to basically communicate with the database. Then we have Spring started JPA. This is for us to create all of those Java persistent API, basically to allow us to save objects in the repository or in the database, get these objects from the database and change them. Okay, change them while we program, basically make changes while these changes are going to be updated in the database. And the last one that I didn't mention is the web one, right? Obviously we're making a web application, so Spring Boot Starter Web is a must in our dependency list. Okay, so all the dependencies are added to the POM file. And the only thing that we want to do that we didn't do yet is on our top right, we have this M logo here with the little refresh sort of sign. And what we're going to do is to load the changes in the Maven project. We're going to click on it. And now I'm not getting any errors. Everything is in white on black, no red, no font red anywhere. So basically it means that everything is legit. We can move on. Okay, so first of all, let's make our entity. The entity, the two entities we're going to have in this very simple project is going to be a student and a teacher. Okay, we'll start with a teacher. Okay, so in our project, the teacher is going to be like the class, if you will. Okay, you can create, I mean, your homework could be that you are making it a lot more complex, where you have a class, which is a physical class, and a teacher can be inside this class or inside this other class. Maybe you have an empty class which you can use, and then you have a teacher who has students. you can make it as complex as it can get. I mean, really, the sky is the limit in terms of logic that you can create. The teacher is going to be a teacher. He's going to have students, right? Each teacher will have students. The list of students might change according to the class, which we're not going to basically implement the logic for the class, but again, you can do it as a homework. So the first thing we're going to do to basically make it an entity is to add entity. Now, once we annotate the teacher class with the entity, basically Spring knows, okay, this is a model that I can work with, okay, which I can later use in the repository. Okay, so let's write all the fields that a teacher might have. So first of all, a teacher obviously has an ID. The ID is obviously crucial because we need to find a particular teacher by some sort of field, in the database. And we want to find a specific one all the time because maybe there's something that we need from a particular teacher. And we can't really look for a teacher by a name because teachers might have similar names, right? It's logical. And actually, IDs could, to make sure that the ID is going to be different every time, we're actually going to choose a certain strategy, a generating strategy for IDs in our database. Because right now we're basically creating an entity inside our database. This teacher is going to be a table inside our database. And each record that is going to be produced in this database is going to be basically according to this model that we're creating right now. So first of all, we have an ID and we need to tell Spring that this is the identifier that is going to be used in this database. Okay, so first of all, we'll add the ID by Jakarta, okay, with a capital I. When you write an annotation or look for an annotation or create it for yourself, make sure you start with a capital letter. That's good practice right there. Okay, so then we add generated value. You see, IntelliJ is making my life very easy. It's already recommending what I need to do next. So we're using a strategy. Strategy basically means that in what form, in what way the IDs are going to be generated. And I'm going to use identity. Basically, each time a new record is going to be added, a new teacher is going to be added to the teacher table, he will be granted a brand new ID that was never used before. Basically, teacher 1 will get 1. The next teacher that we'll add will get 2. Okay, if we're going to have errors sometimes in the SQL, we might skip a few IDs, but again, each column, each record will have its own ID, and that's the important part. Okay, so then we have the name. So we're adding the name. We're adding the age. Teacher might have an age, right? I would imagine. And then I want to add the subject. Now, as you can see, IntelliJ automatically imported Java Security off, which is another option that we don't need right now. Subject is basically an enum that I want us to generate, to make. So, and we will get rid of this import in a moment. So in the entity, I'm going to add an enum. It's going to be a subject. And inside the subject, I will add, believe it or not, but I will add subjects. I will add math, computer science, English, literature, is that right? Yeah. Okay, so I just added a couple of 4 types of subjects. You can add as many as you want. So the enum has some sort of way of numbering each position of each subject, and by default it's going to be saved in the database by 0, 1, 2, and 3. Each number will indicate a different subject in the database. Okay, and we're going to add to our teacher, now that we have the subject here, the enum, which is public because I might want to use this enum in other classes as well, not only here. Therefore, I had to create a separate one. So here I'm going to get rid of this subject import. I don't want it.